accurate and that you're familiar with the loan and blah, 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 blah. And of course the employee, what do? They do what an employee does. They follow the word of the boss and they won't sign away. Never been a vice president, never been an attorney, never looked at any of the paperwork that they're swearing that they looked at. Why is that important? Revelations that lenders, you so-called robo-signers who signed foreclosure orders but did not actually read them, could give borrowers leverage to seek loan modifications rather than lose their homes. I've also seen cases dismissed because the bank's attorneys have submitted documents that were signed by robo-signers. And after the judges finally picked up on it and was brought to their attention, you know, a judge doesn't usually like somebody trying to pass fraud off on his or her court. How would you know if the people trying to foreclose upon you had a robo-signer with it? How would you know if the paperwork was accurate and correct? This is my favorite quote from last year. Allegations of possible mortgage fraud against financial giants GMAC, JP Morgan Chase, and Bank of America read like a corporate thriller. Forged documents, fake social security numbers, disappearing titles, disappearing paper trails, robo-signers, and mortgages sliced and diced so many times that nobody really knows who owns them. It's from the Chicago Tribune, October 2010. All 50 state attorneys general, as well as a host of federal agencies, are pushing for a settlement over investigations into foreclosure abuses. It could cost the industry $20 billion or more. Unfortunately, in our state, our Attorney General has taken a somewhat opposite opinion than her other attorneys general nationwide. She was one of 6 people who decided not to sign on to an agreement that would have basically forced the mortgage lenders to order a principal reduction of balance on people who were facing foreclosure. She said she didn't want that to happen because she was afraid that it would basically promote to other people to quit paying their mortgage. And given that our governor is in the state of mind he is, and she is pretty much in the same line of the political arena, and that we're not going to take any money and we're basically not going to hold the banks accountable. And if we get paid from the banks, it's going to go into the state and federal government, and it sure isn't going to trickle down to your pockets. And so that's where we stand. $20 billion, yeah, they're going to get it from the banks. Matter of fact, Bank of America just paid $8.5 billion because they sold these bad mortgage security stocks to people. So they know that they have to pay somebody, and they're going to keep trying to pay off who they have to pay off. But I can tell you this, there is not a politician out there right now in our state who's fighting for you saying it should come down and go to people. It's all going to get distributed to the state. Judge berate banks, lawyers, and foreclosures. In numerous opinions, the judges have accused lawyers of processing shoddy or even fabricated paperwork in foreclosure actions when representing banks. Courts in Florida have begun requiring that lawyers in foreclosure cases vouch for the accuracy of the documents they present. They are now requiring them to have what's called a verified complaint to try to do away with some of the shenanigans. This is from the Florida Times-Union, October of last year. The foreclosure mills take these cases by the thousands. They do it by cutting all of the corners and all of the laws. When they file these things, they're all defective. They just don't have the elements that the law requires. The Attorney General's Economic Crimes Division is investigating for fictitious documents and fraud. 2 to 3 months after this article came down, the largest plaintiff's foreclosure attorney's office in the state of Florida was closed down for fraud. The law office of David Stern handled about 1 in every 3 residential foreclosures in our state. They were based out of Fort Lauderdale. They processed hundreds of thousands of foreclosures. They were shut down by the Attorney General's office for fraud, for forgery, and for basically lying to the court when proceeding with foreclosures. If we look at it, the fact that maybe 8 to 9 out of 10 people did not respond, how many of those people got processed by that law firm? How many foreclosures got processed by that law firm? People that maybe had a right to stay in their house. People that had a right to get a loan modification, but got kicked out anyway because they chose not to fight back. And so I tell people all the time, the judge is not there to be your defense attorney. The judge is not going to argue your case for you. The judge is going to listen to your side and try to do what's best, but he or she is not there to point out the flaws in the other person's case. How bad is it? Well, 2 states have decided to sue Bank of America. Attorney General in Nevada and Arizona filed suit. And what did they allege? Widespread fraud and outright deception. Widespread fraud and outright deception in dealing with people who are seeking loan modifications. Telling homeowners they had to be delinquent on their mortgage to be considered for a loan modification. Telling homeowners foreclosure would not proceed while a loan modification was pending. Telling homeowners they would be approved for a permanent modification if they made all the payments in a trial modification. Point. If you are ever offered a trial modification, do not send a single dime in until you get it in writing. Do not believe anything they say over the phone. If they've made any promises or representations to you over the phone, they should have no problem putting it down on paper and sending it to you. If they refuse to do so, they are under absolutely no legal obligation to make that a permanent loan modification. And all you're going to be doing is giving them more money. No, sir. Fighting the foreclosure. Why is having the original promissory note important? It's a live negotiable instrument. It's like a cashier's check. It's the IOU a borrower signs. Lenders may try to foreclose with a copy of the promissory note instead of the original. If the lawsuit isn't challenged, the lender's going to win automatically by default. We talked briefly before about the transfer of property, an exacting process that it is. It's called an assignment of a mortgage from one holder to another. It requires a proper assignment form. Many cases of improper and fraudulent assignments of mortgages have been discovered in the cases that we have looked at. It's gotten so bad where we have seen some assignments where the assignment takes place after the commencement of the foreclosure action. And I stop and I say, wait a minute. This assignment says that you didn't get this property until 2 months after you filed suit. How on earth did you file suit in January if you didn't receive title to the property in March? A lender must prove they have the right to foreclose. In legal terminology, it's called standing. It can be proven through proper foreclosure paperwork and possession of the original note. This is from the New York Times of this year. Officials disagree on penalties for a mortgage mess. Bank of America says it's unfair to reward homeowners who are delinquent or underwater but cannot point to specific errors in their case. In other words, if you think that you're going to be able to walk into court and hold up a copy of USA Today and show the judge that Bank of America has been committing fraud on people all over the country, the judge is going to say, that's great. That has nothing to do with what we're here for today. You have to point out specific errors in your case. You can't make blanket allegations of fraud. You have to have specific examples. How do you figure it out? How do you make sense of it? It's very hard, I think, unless you do this for a living. This has become a very complicated area of law. It's not something that you can learn on Google over the weekend. Unless you understand the rules of civil procedure, the rules of evidence, securities law, and a lot. You want to have somebody, an attorney, conduct an extensive foreclosure review of your documents. They can provide useful information for a foreclosure defense case. When I talk about documents, I'm talking about your original loan paperwork, and if you've been served foreclosure papers, anything associated with that. If you do not have your original loan paperwork, a good attorney is going to get them for you. They will submit what is called a QWR, or a qualified written request. The lender servicer is required by law to respond to the QWR. In it, they should submit everything associated with that loan. The reviews my office do, they regularly discover fraud. You may discover the lender has no right to be there in court. Legal defenses here in our state, the lawsuit is filed against you. In my opinion, you should retain an attorney. It's a very, very difficult fight. The bank's attorneys, they're not there on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They don't just show up every now and then. They are there every single day. And usually they're sitting up front. They know the judges by first name. And that's what they do, and that's all they do. And that's a heck of a fight if you want to take it on. The attorney you hire should perform a forensic audit of your loan to look for these violations, to look for TILA violations, to look for RESPA violations, to look for HEPA violations. The attorney should also conduct an intensive foreclosure document review. Do you have any robo-signers? Is the note that they are offering into evidence actually real? Or did somebody sit down with a fancy Xerox copy machine and make things up? Are the numbers true and accurate to what they say I owe? Have they been trying to do tricky things like take money that I sent in and put it somewhere else than where I thought it was going? And that leads me to this. We talk about being responsible and how usually in this game, if you choose to be responsible, you're going to get the sharp end of the stick. I'm sure a lot of people in here probably hit a time where they said, you know, I can't afford to make that $2,000 payment right now, but I can afford to give them $1,000. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that check for $1,000 and send it in because that's the right thing to do. Well, you basically threw that money away. You basically threw that money away because not a single dollar of that money went to pay down your principal balance of your loan. They took that money, they paid penalties, they paid fees, they paid interest, and they took the rest of it, they put it in an escrow account, and it just basically sits there. And they didn't tell you they did it. They didn't have to tell you they did it. And any time that you made payments that were less than what you owed, this is probably what they did. And you are in default on the loan technically, and now you've just given them another $1,000 just because. And they're not talking to you about it and telling you what you should or shouldn't do, but you've just basically thrown that money away. Most importantly, the attorney you hire should aggressively litigate against your lender to achieve the best possible outcome. The people I see on a day-to-day basis that are getting the best deals are the people who are unafraid to stare the bull down. The banks are going to try to bully you. They're going to try to threaten you. And they're going to do it first with their own people and then second with their hired gun attorneys. And they're going to try to make you stress out, and they're going to try to intimidate you, and they're going to try to get you to quit. And when 8 to 9 out of 10 people don't fight the foreclosures, these banks and their attorneys, they're going around looking for the low-hanging fruit. And they're going to go pick all that low-hanging fruit. The people that choose to fight back, the people that put up a fuss, they're the ones that I see on a day-to-day basis getting a positive outcome. Now, when I say positive outcome, that can come in a lot of different forms for people. You know, I get some people who come to me and they say, just keep me in the house as long as you can. I don't know what I want to do, but I just want you to keep me here so I don't have to operate under the bank's timetable, so I can have some time to try to figure things out for myself. I've got other people who tell me, Mama loves the home, and we got to keep it. And we got to exhaust all avenues we can before we get out of here. I've got some people who tell me, look, I got to get out here. I'm so upside down on this place, I'll never be able to pay it, and it'll never come back to what it's worth. I want to get out of here and get on to something else. So success can come in a lot of different ways, shapes, and forms for people, just depending on what your goals are. And it doesn't mean goals can't change. I want to be clear, though, there are no guarantees of a specific outcome when you fight back on your foreclosure. You have a much better chance of getting what you want if you contact an attorney early on and don't wait till you're the day before your court hearing or after a default judgment has been entered against you. The longer you wait, the more rights you lose and the worse chance your case has of being looked at again. I see people all the time who come to us on the 25th day, and technically they can be defaulted after the 20th day. And if a default judgment has been entered against you, a lot of these judges, they don't want to go backwards. They are up to here in foreclosure cases. They want to go forward. Do you have time to act? Time is very limited with respect to foreclosure proceedings. You need to examine the best options available for your circumstances and take action to protect your family's well-being. In my opinion, who are the smart ones? The people who don't wait till they're broke to fight back. The people who don't sit there and slowly bleed to death and only at the last second say, save me. The people who actually still have some resources and decide to tackle the problem. They see that train, it hasn't run over them yet, but it's coming. And it's going to be there in a couple years. Most people I represent are on fixed income. And I hear stories like, you know, David, we can afford to pay, but you know what? If I keep paying in 3 years, I'm broke. And what happens then? Then you're broke and you're facing foreclosure instead of having some money and facing foreclosure. And as you all know, when you have some money, it affords you some opportunities to do some different things, especially when it comes to foreclosure representation. You know, my grandfather in the old days, he'd have climbed over broken glass to make his mortgage payment. He'd have sold the car, done anything necessary. That's a very honorable thing. But you know what? That's not how it is today. These banks have been paid off with TARP money from President Bush. They've been paid off with TARP money from President Obama. They've been paid off with federally insured mortgage. They've gotten paid off for everybody goes delinquent on them. Are you kidding me? They've sold these stock. They have been paid back. They have been paid back. If you want to do the honorable thing and sit there and slowly bleed to death while you go broke, then so be it. But you know, I've never seen anybody feed their family with an 800 credit score. It's a nice thing to have if you can afford it. But to act like missing a payment or fighting back is going to cost you the world, well, what's going to cost you the world if you don't fight back most of the time? At least that's my opinion. And unfortunately, with the climate we're in right now, the person you're asking for help, they really don't want to help you. As a matter of fact, why don't you think about that for a second? What do most people do? You get knocked on the door and you get served foreclosure paperwork. What's the first thing somebody does? Oh my God, let me call my bank to find out what I should do. And I stop them and I say, so let me get this straight. You're calling the person that's suing you and asking for advice. Because that's what they're suing you. And you're calling them and asking for advice. If they were going to give you good advice, they wouldn't have sued you. If they were there to help you, they wouldn't have sued you. Understand, they've got no intention of helping you unless you fight back. I want to thank all the sponsors of the event. We're going to open the floor up to questions now.